Now, Freshworks. Simon, of course, will tell you much more about Freshworks. It is a business software company. Business software used to, I think it's fair to say, be clunky, expensive, hard to set up, and frustrating to use. Times have changed, and Freshworks produces software that's ready to go, easy to set up and use, and I'm told requires minimal customization. And I think there are around about 40,000 customers so far, but Simon, you may be able to correct that. There's a little bit of history. 2010, the founders began work on creating a user-focused, cloud-based customer service software, and that launched in June 2011 as Freshdesk. By 2014, it had 30,000 users. In June 2017, it relaunched as Freshworks, and October this year, the company launched Freshworks CRM, a customer engagement platform for sales and marketing. And as I say, Simon will tell you a lot more just in a moment. But we're here today to launch some new research. Only 1.7 million people in the UK worked from home before the coronavirus pandemic. An estimated 20 million people have relocated to home offices since the beginning of the crisis. That's an amazing figure and an amazing achievement. And this research captures how organizations have responded to what has been a big challenge, what barriers they've encountered, how the crisis is shaping their vision of future models of operating, and how they anticipate customer behaviors changing. So a couple of figures: 89% of customer service leaders in the UK have seen an increase in support volumes across digital channels like email, live chat and messaging, social media and website. And 65% of customer service leaders worldwide are embracing remote or hybrid operating models that accommodate work from home as well as working from the office. And that's something that we have been talking about at CCA since the beginning of the pandemic. With this change, we're witnessing the rise of a new brand of customer service that's centered around agility. Now, you will get the link to the research, to the report at the end of the session. Please welcome Simon Johnson, who is General Manager UKI Freshworks. Simon, over to you.
That's a bit of a mouthful. Yes, thank you, Liz, and good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us in this session this morning, where I think we have some really exciting data and some very insightful research that's been conducted, and we're going to share it today in a way that will hopefully give you some ideas and some concepts and maybe a bit of a vision for next year. It will also hopefully support any thoughts you have, because it's backed by hundreds and hundreds of CX leaders like yourselves. So if we just move forward. Great. As Liz mentioned, so my name is Simon Johnson. I'm the UK General Manager for Freshworks. I've got an interesting story, actually. I joined the company 6.5 years ago, right back when we were a very unknown, small South Indian company, just 180 people globally. We've actually grown pretty significantly over that period. We're actually the fastest growing privately held SaaS company in the world, and combined with around 400 million of investment from some of the biggest investment companies in the world, like Google and Accel Partners and Sequoia and others. We now have over 50,000 paying customers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of freemium customers. We have around 3,500 employees, colleagues globally, and I personally run the office in London, where we have around 70 or so staff across a full facet of a go-to-market strategy. As you can see, we also have 12 products, and the product strategy has very much changed. So as Liz mentioned, we've gone from being really a point-based ticketing solution, if you like, to a full-scale customer engagement platform. And our appeal, I think, is based around modern, mobile, off-the-shelf SaaS products that plug into each other, giving you the omni-channel experience. And we've really seen actually a massive growth over the past year, mainly because of this real acceleration of the digital transformation phenomena that we've seen. In fact, one of the statements I like to make is, certainly in public sector, this is true. The first part, or the first half of digital transformation in the public sector took 26 years, the second half took 26 weeks. We've seen a massive, staggering growth in transformation of companies. And we're going to talk about that today. If we just move forward. Okay, so what are we trying to do here? We know that actually what the market is looking for here is an all-encompassing view of your customer. And that's where organizations are able to differentiate themselves from the competition. As we know, perhaps consumers are less likely to stay with you if you can't deliver the level of service that they're expecting across a multitude of different channels that they also are using. So again, we'll talk about that today. And what we focus on here is how do we create those moments of wow? You know, how do your agents deliver that effortless experience that you desperately want to provide to your customers? And that's what Freshworks can deliver. And you can see here that we've actually been rated as visionary on the Freshworks, on the Gartner Magic Quadrant, which is pretty amazing. We're in fact the only organization to be rated as visionary. Okay, let's keep moving forward. Okay, yeah, just to quickly add, you know, we work with, like I said, tens of thousands of paying customers of all sizes actually, but you can see here there's some really big organizations, including travel. As we know, travel's been deeply affected this year, and actually what we've seen within the travel industry is actually a retooling exercise. So moving away from maybe the big incumbent telephony solutions to a much more dynamic and agile SaaS-based telephony solution or SaaS-based omni-channel solution. And I'm really happy to talk to you about many different examples that we've got within the different in the different verticals. Okay, so let's kick things off then in terms of what we're going to look at today. So to start with, we're going to focus just on the state of customer service in 2020. As we mentioned, we compiled research alongside census-wide with insights driven by the Freshworks analyst team. And we're looking at, like I said, insights and predictions from 800 customer service leaders across the EU and UK, actually 1,500 globally, and there were over 200 just in the UK. So I think we've got some really good basis for discussion here. And I urge you all to download and read the report. There's some fascinating findings. The second thing we'll talk about, you know, what were the findings? What do they mean based upon the separate regions? And we've split that out across Europe, because there's actually some interesting comparisons to be made between European regions. Key takeaways, and then we'll finish with a Q&A session. So as Liz mentioned, please do post your questions in the chat area. I'm completely comfortable talking about what we've seen over the past 12 months, or actually what we've seen over the past 6 years, because there's been a real change in how organizations are looking to deliver service and customer experience. Okay, so let's start with a poll to get everybody a little bit more interactive. So we've just got a very simple question with some answers. Hopefully you can see that pop up on your screen. So the question is, which of the following were true regarding the state of customer service in 2020? Customer expectations have increased. Have customer service budgets increased? And have customer service leaders embraced work from home? Let's just give 10 seconds for everybody to quickly pop in your thoughts here. This is quite an interesting area, and I think probably has changed as the years gone, as the last 12 months or 8 months have unraveled themselves, basically. Cool. All right. I think we'll probably leave it there, because I know that we're stretched for time. So the answer was, as most of you thought, it's all of the above. Staggeringly, I think we'd probably expect customer expectations to have increased, but would we have expected customer service budgets to have increased so significantly? And we'll talk about that shortly. And finally, have all leaders embraced work from home? I think we've tried our hardest, but what we found is actually, yeah, the majority have. So all of these statements are true. Thank you. Okay, moving on. So here we go. So the state of customer service in 2020. These are the actual numbers that we've got back from the leaders. So yes, you're right. 69% of customer service leaders have seen a rise in customer expectations. And I think what we're talking about here is in the expectation of a consumer to be basically given the A1 service. And that's probably changed because it's so easy now for consumers to move between brands and products. Actually, their expectations have increased, not just in terms of the service they deliver, but also maybe the platforms that they deliver it on through, let's say, WhatsApp or Apple Business Chat or telephony or email or knowledge base or self-service. There's so many different areas. Personally, I like trying to solve my own problems, but that's not the same for everybody. So then we have to try and fit in the expectations for all kinds. Second area, as we mentioned, we've actually seen a big increase in budgets, which is pretty amazing across the whole of Europe. But actually, budgets have increased more in the UK, and we'll talk about that again in a bit more detail. But customer service leaders have turned to technology basically to boost productivity and performance. So budgets have naturally increased. Investments in live chat and messaging, AI chatbots, automation, self-service have seen a considerable increase this year. I'd be interested to know how everybody feels like that on the line today. And then finally, the big insight here is that in 2021 we need to be more agile, and I'm hoping that's the sort of solution that you guys are thinking about, and that's certainly the sort of solution that we feel that we can provide at Freshworks with our omni-channel platform. So 65% of customer service leaders worldwide are embracing remote or hybrid operating models, which previously wouldn't have been considered given the technology that was in place. So essentially, customer service leaders need to enable their teams to be more agile and to work from anywhere, and maybe work from anywhere forever. And we'll talk about that potential hybrid model later. Implementing remote-ready technologies is basically the way forward, and it's actually now table stakes. If you don't have that in place, you're going to get left behind, and we really have seen companies get left behind. If you think of Primark is perhaps a good example there. It's very much an in-store experience. Actually, that huge in-store suddenly disappeared. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so as we start to look at the key findings then by region, I think the sort of interesting things that are coming out here, customer expectations, as we know, are increasing. 69% of the respondents believe that's the case, so that I think we'll take as a given. Customer empathy, actually businesses are now starting to sort of look at themselves and the way that they're actually handling their customers, because they know that actually, the gap maybe has been closed between the digital and the physical, so it makes it very, very hard for organizations to really stand out and excel. And then the final one is pretty obvious, I think, but customer churn, and just even an example from Freshworks. Like I said, we have a lot of organizations in the travel industry, and that's been a difficult time for those guys, and actually difficult for us, because actually lots of staff have been furloughed, so we've had to really sort of figure out how we can work and help our customers that are struggling basically in the current climate. And then I think we can just see the differences here between UK and the other regions. It may not come as a surprise, but 69% are in the UK are saying that customer behaviour has changed basically, which is pretty even across the globe. But I honestly believe that the UK is potentially leading the way here, and I think as an organisation we've also seen that the UK is very advanced actually with the way that it deals with customers and new technologies, omni-channel technologies. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so this is again very, very interesting because what we're now starting to see is massive increases in support volumes across all channels. So overall contact volume is up significantly. So we can just see here 44% basically have said it's increased up to 20%, but then 21 to 50%. We've got a massive amount of people here. A quarter of the population that were surveyed have said that levels have increased between 20 and 50% with their organisations. And how do you possibly deal with that? And especially across all of these different channels. And again, that's the interesting piece here, where we've seen a big increase, obviously, in phone, as one would expect, because that's perhaps the easiest for people to get hold of. But actually, look at the live chat and messenger, massive increases, huge increases in website traffic, because people are moving to e-commerce and will continue to move towards the e-commerce option. And then, interestingly, social media. Social media is playing a really big part here. And perhaps before the pandemic hit, social media was sort of seen as a place you go to complain. People have a rant on Twitter, for example. This trains late again, but actually, it's now being seen as an actual channel that can be answered and responded properly. One of the problems that organisations have faced is that social media hasn't been part of their omni-channel solution. So it was actually a siloed data pool. So how do you join together the social media with a phone call or an email? And that's absolutely key in this situation where support volumes are increasing so rapidly. Okay, so this is super interesting, and again, really interested to hear people's views on this. Please do reach out with questions. So what are the biggest challenges that customer service teams have faced through the crisis? And you'll see that there is a difference here between UK and Europe. So delays in responding to customers and resolving issues. Nothing drives me more crazy, actually, than being on a call or emailing a customer, emailing an organization as a consumer, and I have a response back to say, sorry, there's going to be a delay due to COVID. I really feel that organizations can do a bit better than this, because there are the technologies out there to try and help deal with these increases in workflow. So 42%, I said, the biggest challenges in delays in responding to customers. 40% voted that making process changes in our technology platforms were one of the biggest challenges. This is very, very atypical of outdated software, probably. And I see this a lot in the field, where we'll go into an organization and we'll look at their setup and look at how they're trying to deliver or what they're trying to deliver as a service. And actually the problem is they can't make any changes. They have to bring in a consultant, for example, or even just to create a new workflow. It needs a developer to code it or something. Very much encourage here the use of simple drag and drop workflows that you can visualize the process that the customer is running through. Number 3 here on the UK list is tracking productivity and performance, which again sounds a bit crazy, but if you just think the sheer number, I think Liz mentioned it, we've gone from 1.2 million people working at home to circa 20 million people working at home. How do you track the productivity and performance? And I have that conversation pretty much every day with organizations where the software that they're using just isn't able to measure the number of phone calls, or to measure the number of emails that somebody may have received, or the number of tickets that have been created, how long it's taken to respond to that first ticket, or to close the ticket, or how many times it's been passed around the organization. These are relatively simple things to track, but actually, given the year we've had, it's forced people to work from home, and they don't have the technology to track. Of course, operating with reduced staff, and we'll talk about that in a second. Staff have been furloughed, but we still have an increase in support tickets. Difficulty in managing agent workload. Again, this is, in an omni-channel world, relatively easy to manage, but how do you manage that from an email perspective? It's super, super difficult. You can't manage where your emails are pushed to. Essentially, you're managing an inbox. So how do you manage what your agents are working on? And if you add in the additional problem here, which is we can't really measure it, so we don't know how the staff are feeling about their work. Mental health has been discussed a lot. The importance of trying to understand how your staff are working at home. It becomes even more difficult if you can't manage workloads. Tickets will build up, and actually, we've gone from working from home to living at work, essentially. And I'm sure many of the guys on the call right now will agree with me. We're up at 6, and you kind of start checking email, and then you're still probably checking email at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. It's really hard to avoid living at work, which is the situation that we're all in. And then, of course, at the bottom, which is still massively important, we've gone from being in an office environment to suddenly working in our own 4 walls at home. how do you collaborate properly with staff? And there's nothing better than needing support from an organization. You call them up, you get passed to maybe another agent, and that agent immediately has all of the context they need. And that's what we're talking about, collaboration here. How can you make sure that you, firstly, you get the right agent at the right time, and secondly, that agent has all the information they need to be able to solve your issue. And that comes with collaboration and knowledge management. And then we see a little bit of difference here in the European challenges. I'm not going to run through each of them, but it's just quite interesting that perhaps they're not seeing the same delays in responding to customers, but they're struggling with managing agent workloads. And again, being a European leader, I do see differences between regions in terms of the take-up of technologies. And again, I'll sort of reiterate, I do think the UK is in a very strong position from that perspective, including public sector, by the way. I do think in some cases, public sector is actually a little bit ahead of private sector, certainly with the way they're trying to solve issues through digital information. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so this is perhaps the slightly surprising one that we looked at earlier. I don't think any of us would have perhaps thought this, and I suspected that budgets would have been slashed, and it would have been a difficult year for tech companies in particular to endure. However, it turned out a little bit differently. And what's actually happened here is that we've seen a massive acceleration in digital transformation, as I've already mentioned, and actually the companies have responded to that by increasing budgets. So 75% of customer leaders in the UK have seen an increase versus 2019. Now, perhaps you can imagine a small increase anyway, year on year. Perhaps that's just a kind of natural growth. But look at some of the increases here. 25% of respondents think there was an increase of 20 to 50% on their budget, which seems really, really high. But I mean, great news, because it means that we're reacting to the situation of the shift from perhaps bricks and mortar to e-commerce. So and in the UK in particular, we're actually seeing a big growth. So what were the numbers again? So 13%, as you can see, a 13% increase up against a global average increase of 8% for the UK. So pretty cool, I think. Let's move on. Okay, so this is where things might get a little bit tricky then. So we've seen a big increase, like I said, a 13% increase in budgets. But what we've also seen is basically a decrease in staffing since February, which creates, as you can imagine, its own problems. So big increases in the number of tickets and the number of inquiries that are coming into the organisation, but actually we're seeing a decrease in staff. So that would suggest we need to think about new ways of working, and I think that's what we're going to see as a kind of priority going into 2021. Again, I'll be sort of keen to know how people feel about that. I know that we are seeing big unemployment levels in the UK. Perhaps that will start to return back to normal, but certainly industries like travel, as we know, that's been heavily hit, and it's difficult for those guys at the moment. Okay, so moving on then. So what does all this mean? Well, ultimately, we have to deal with the situation at hand. So there is an increase in the budget, so organisations are recognising that, but there's a decrease in staff. So how do we solve that gap? Well, it looks like organisations are trying to solve it through technology, which is, again, fantastic, because I think it will actually improve the levels of service that we're seeing and actually address some of those real difficulties that the organisations have faced. So you can see here, 44% of customer service leaders worldwide said that live chat and messaging were critical for them to maintain service levels through the crisis. So I think live chat is a fantastic example, actually, and not just live chat, by the way. So what I'm talking about here is live chat, WhatsApp, Apple Business Messenger. These are all relatively new phenomena, and I'm sure probably everybody on this call has a WhatsApp account. A relatively new phenomena that is being now taken up by businesses, and it's becoming the norm. Can we contact, I want to use WhatsApp, therefore, why doesn't the organization I'm trying to contact use WhatsApp as a means? And it's actually, in some organizations, and I'll talk about one of them now actually, it's becoming the preference aside from email. So I'm sure many of you have heard of Klarna, which is a very large, super fast growing actually, fintech company based in Europe, delivering payment services for Azos and many other organizations now, servicing 80 million customers. They've made a big push towards chat, and actually now their support through chat is accounting for 60% of their total support, which is pretty staggering, and probably the most that I've seen for an organization servicing so many customers. But actually, they've moved from having roughly 60 to 65% through telephone. Now 60 to 65% is through chat platforms, which is really cool. And I'm really happy to talk about that, and also provide you with the use case and user story there too. In fact, I think it might even be part of the report that we're sharing. So other areas that organizations are looking to improve. For workforce management, obviously makes sense. We could see that there was a problem with workloads, managing workloads for employees. Collaboration, I think, is very interesting. Again, we've probably all used Slack. Slack's been a massive success, I think, over the past couple of years, and backed up with the recent acquisition by another organization for many billions. So that would prove it's done pretty well. Other collaboration tools, obviously we're using Zoom, which is a classic example, and also other channels like Teams has done very well over the past year. So these are going to continue to grow and continue to be invested in. Self-service customer portal. This is something that we've been promoting for a long time now, actually. And like I said, I'm personally my preference is to try and solve it myself if I can. Secondly, would be to go to chat. Now, obviously, you can't solve it yourself if the level of management, if the level of knowledge is not already in the system. So the very first thing that anybody should do before embarking on a self-service strategy is to make sure that actually, do we have the right information in the knowledge base? If we don't, it all needs to be updated, and then we can start our self-service journey. And again, there's some great examples of organizations that we've worked with, like Sports Direct and Fraser's Group, for example. June is another really good example, and many more, where our train line's a great example as well, where they've really worked hard at their knowledge management side of things to try and help customers self-serve. And again, I'm really happy and comfortable to talk about any of those examples. Great. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so let's just break this down then for the general situation of where we are. So 83% of customer service leaders are investing 25% more in live chat and messaging. So it feels like the message or the platform is resonating and it's pushing forward. I hope you guys are all thinking carefully about your live chat experience and vision soon. Just to put an asterisk on that, it's very important not to implement live chat as a separate siloed bucket, which sometimes people can do. They look to make a quick decision. Yep, we need to get live chat, we need to get WhatsApp, pop it on the website and put a team on it. That isn't the solution, by the way. You need to really think about, well, how do we join together that WhatsApp along with that telephony, along with that email? Because invariably what will happen there is somebody will tweet. Let's say they've got 10,000 followers and they make a tweet and one team are dealing with it. They then come in through WhatsApp, another team deal with it, and they make a telephone call. That person is going to be very frustrated if they can't get a joined up story where your agents are collaborating and talking on the same omnichannel platform. The next area, 77% of customer service leaders are investing 22% more in collaboration tools. So again, it would suggest that we're starting to see the fruits of some of these discussions coming true. Maybe people are starting to realize that, look, we can deliver a better experience if our staff are motivated and engaged and collaborating together. And we've probably all experienced that within our teams in our workplace. And then just finally, 76% of customer service leaders are investing 21% more in cloud telephony software. And I think this is a really interesting one, and I did touch upon it earlier. It's relatively easy now to take a team and to put them online at home through SaaS telephony. And I think those organizations that have that ability to work in that agile manner are those that have changed and adapted really, really quickly. And we all know that those organizations most able to change are the ones that are most likely to succeed. Good example for us, personally, it's a very, very large travel management company. Actually, they were looking at retooling, and I think every CFO probably did exactly the same thing. As soon as March, April, May hit, they were looking at, okay, let's have a look at all of our software here. What's costing us the most and what is least agile? And then through a process of, evaluations and elimination, a lot of them are moving towards pure SaaS solutions. Of course, telephony is a major part in that, and the quality of SaaS telephony is very, very good now. So definitely something worth considering, and clearly it's something that's being considered from our surveys. Great. Okay. So 3 main takeaways. First area is around working from home. So I mentioned earlier about the hybrid model and what this really means. Well, 53% of customer service leaders in the UK expect in-store inquiries to increase by the middle of next year. So that's a given. So we're expecting, let's say the vaccine is a success, we managed to get the vaccine into the population, and we start seeing more in-store behaviour. So that will increase. So this indicates that leaders are feeling some sort of degree of normality will return with their customers, hopefully. However, despite this, over 64% of leaders expect contact centre volumes to continue to increase through 2021 through phone, email, chat and messaging. So actually what we're looking at here is a hybrid model. So again, those organisations that are able to adapt, so we've gone from one extreme to the other right now, we're now looking at striking a happy balance. We've proven actually that staff can work from home, and we can just, in fact, our CEO talks about us having 13 global offices previously. We now have 3,500 global offices, which is quite an interesting way of looking at it. If you can very quickly fire up your services back home, you can quite easily provide a hybrid service, which obviously reduces costs for the organisation, but hopefully keeps the engagement and the service levels really high. The other thing that we've seen that's been really cool are organisations that are trying to create like the digital lipstick effect, which I'm sure you've probably heard, where how do you create that in-store experience at Selfridges or at the makeup counter or in a shoe store? How do you create that experience in home? And those companies that have managed to have those one-to-one video sessions, for example, with their customers, have really prospered from doing that. So the next area, so support requests and tickets for volumes will of course continue to increase. And I think again, it's all to do with how you can manage automation. We haven't really spoken about automation very much here. It wasn't a focus of the survey, but what we're seeing and what I'm personally seeing is organizations are desperate to try and solve those simple solutions automatically, and I think that's the right thing to do. How can the staff add value whilst we deliver a great service for the relatively simple questions? And I think that's the quandary that people face here, and you can't really do that until you have a solid knowledge management strategy. My advice here is, and I've seen this play out many times, take the first steps by understanding what your top 5 or top 10 inquiries are coming into your support team. I'm sure you will do it. Just for a month, just log what those top inquiries are, and then start to work out, well, okay, so for this top inquiry, can we create the best possible knowledge-based response? And it might be using video, might be using some sort of animation, but either way, if somebody has that question, can we provide this to them at the right time? And if we can do that for those top 5 or top 10 inquiries or more, then that's the beginning of your automation journey. Because at that point, you can then introduce a chatbot. Chatbots are obviously becoming very, very popular, introduce a chatbot and it should learn your business. And with an omnichannel solution like Freshdesk, we can also start predicting the right answer. So if somebody comes in with one question, where's my delivery, let's say, or my item of clothing doesn't fit, we should be able to basically then say, actually, this knowledge-based article has solved this question 90% of the time. I suggest you try and use this one. So it helps the agents deliver the consistent approach that you're wanting. And then the final area is really just to be super, super aware of employee engagement and the employee experience. So we've spoken a lot about customer experience and customer engagement, but actually, what about the guys that are actually delivering this and actually have had a tough time? Again, if I just refer to the guys in the travel industry, they've faced a huge number of very angry, very frustrated, almost desperate people contacting the travel companies, and that's hard, really tough for them to take. So we need to be very, very aware of looking after your people and preparing them well for 2021. And again, if we talk about this from a technology perspective, I really feel that providing a system that allows them visibility, it allows them to collaborate, it allows them basically the right tools to provide a great service. And that, as an organization, that's the minimum that you should be doing to support your staff. Great. Okay. So hopefully all of that was, or most of it anyway, hopefully was useful. So just moving on then. So we've got another poll question, and the question here is really just to understand if you'd be interested in a free consultation. We've got really high skilled staff, and I deliver a lot of these sessions myself as well, where essentially what we do is we just look at your vision, look at your current setup, and see if there's anything that we can do to recommend improvements, basically. And we provide that service free of charge, essentially.
Thank you very much, Simon. I think the poll question is still on the screen, so we may catch up with that a bit later. I shall kick off the question and answer session. As usual, Simon, I have written so many notes that I can't find the things that I really wanted to ask you at each step along the way. But it's not for me to ask you questions, it's for everybody else in the audience, so please do keep your questions coming through to the Q&A. There's an anonymous question here, and it says, you mention retail trying to use video to create the in-store experience. Can you elaborate? Surely challenging, especially if the agent is working from home. Was your example Selfridges?
Great. So thanks for the question. And it is absolutely, it's been one of the most fascinating things that I've found actually this year. The example wasn't Selfridges, by the way. I was just using an example of a store that invests very, very heavily in the bricks and mortar effect of going into the store. There's a number of examples actually. One of them is MAC. I don't know if you know MAC, the makeup organization, relatively high end, I guess. So what they've done is given this digital lipstick effect. I kind of coined the phrase, where actually how do you present that as a solution? So they have live sessions where you can have a one-to-one engagement over video, obviously, to show what your face would look like with different styles of makeup. So they're really trying to immerse you in that feeling. Obviously, it's not exactly the same, I know that, but actually they're going the step further by actually giving you that experience. And there's a ton of companies that have done that actually. I urge you to have a look, and I can share more information as well. In fact, some of our customers have done exactly the same thing with really good effect.
Thank you. It's just fascinating what you can do. How far can this go?
Yeah, I agree. Well, one thing that we haven't focused on here is actually delivering. So these are two slightly different things. Obviously, giving an in-store experience is different to supporting a customer as such. One thing we haven't discussed here is the use of video as a support channel, which I think if we go back 2 or 3 years ago, and if I think about sort of my journey with Freshworks, conversations about live chat were few and far between, I have to say. People were intrigued, organizations were intrigued about the effect it could have, but actually a bit worried. If I turn that on, it means I'm going to get a deluge of messages. What do I do with these messages? It's much easier if I've got it on email, I can store it away and I can then respond. Now look where we are, and things have completely flipped on their head, and we can probably thank WhatsApp for that. Actually, email is quite a limiting communication channel. It's very one-dimensional. I message you, you message me. What happens if I then have to pass that to a colleague, or if I'm away and I can't answer that? Or we have to wait and I have 25 emails that I need to wait and get back to you, and it suddenly becomes a really confusing platform to use. So WhatsApp gets rid of those issues. You respond through WhatsApp on your phone. It comes into the support agent, who can have multitude of different chats going. Obviously you can use very rich formats within chat conversations anyway, but it's then a one-to-one conversation. It's very easy to pass it to somebody else. It's very easy to pick up the conversation. You don't need to get it back in your inbox. You might pick it up on your phone at another time, or on your laptop, or whatever it may be. So it really is taking over, and that the kind of penny dropped with me when we saw what Klarna had done. Klarna is very, very fast growing, but possibly the fastest growing fintech in Europe. And they use this to great effect. It's transformed their business, actually.
If I ask young people for their email address, they look at me as if I come from another planet. Surely that is an indication of the fact that we are moving much more to the WhatsApps of this world and whatever comes next.
Yeah.
So just to go back to the whole thinking about, getting the experience, if you're dealing with somebody who's working from home, in your view, what are some of the ways to empower that remote customer service team to really help improve that experience?
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of pillars really that drive this empowerment, and I'll sort of put them under the following. Can we provide the right tools? Can we give them the visibility of the business? Can we allow them to collaborate with the rest of the business? And can we give respect to our staff, basically? And I sort of see these four pillars. And so from the tools, in fact, I'll take the tools at the end. From a visibility perspective, like I said, you've gone from being in an office environment where you can tap somebody on the shoulder and ask them a question, to being very remote, actually. And even my team, some of my team, they might live in a shared house of 4 people in the centre of London, versus myself, I live in Cambridge with my family. Our situations are very different. How do we allow our staff visibility, seeing what's going on across the teams? And an omnichannel platform can do that. It allows you to see, for example, league tables and results and performance without sort of digging in too much, but you can provide all of that visibility, basically. And if from a manager's perspective, I can see that, oh look, this guy here, he's got 15 emails or 15 chats and that are being backed up because he's dealing with a particularly thorny issue. Well, let's just take some of those and reapply them to another member of the team, or put them on a round robin so that he's not receiving any more inquiries. So just that visibility. Second part is collaboration. Like I said, how do we allow one agent to talk to another agent to help solve a customer's problems? And again, with a platform like Freshdesk, it allows you to open a ticket and then quickly tag a colleague, or tag a member of the product team, or whatever it is, to help get that problem solved quicker through collaboration.
So that cuts through one of the words that I noticed that you used that is something that I'm always in the outlook for, is the siloed approach, and you use that word more than once. So you're talking about there processes that will break through those silos and break down those silos. But how far do they actually go into the employee engagement and experience that you need to have? Because we've got to retain our agents, because as you say, there are fewer people, there are fewer employees around, even though our budgets have grown. So there's a dilemma there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and look, a lot of the systems and a lot of the ways that organisations manage are through SLA, as we know. So and constantly organisations are trying to drop the SLA down. Okay, well, an SLA of an hour, 45 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is, to respond to a call. And look, I think we all need to be human about the situation. It's very difficult, and without a product like Freshworks, if it's just email, you can't manage that situation. You can't manage SLAs properly. You can't see how the company or the team is performing. If performance is down, well, let's understand why. What's actually happened? Is it an increase in a particular type of question? Well, if it is, like I said before, let's outline what those top 10 are and try and help solve it. And from an agent's perspective, they want to be solving problems that they can add value. They don't want to be, just searching, okay, yeah, your product's en route. There's kind of no point. It doesn't really please either the consumer or the agent. Let's solve those problems automatically that can be solved automatically and allow the agents to add value to the conversation with the consumer.
I mean, we do know at CCA from what we are hearing that agents are telling their leaders, their team leaders, that the questions and queries they're getting are becoming more complex. But then, as you say, there's no satisfaction in dealing with a client and saying your product's en route. There is much more satisfaction in being able to add value. But then there is that leadership challenge around about how do you support that person who's dealing with much more complex issues than they might normally have dealt with. And so it's a real people situation.
Yeah, and I sort of look at this from a process perspective actually, and I sort of I think, like, how can each agent deliver a consistent response performance to our customer base? And I always think it always comes down to knowledge management. If we provide the right information about the particular issues that are happening, and I know that right at the start of the pandemic it was very hard because nobody knew really what to do about it. But actually, as the year went on, we started to understand it a lot more. And if the organization has a responsibility to create that knowledge management to support their agents in the field, basically, and make them feel like, okay, yeah, this knowledge base will help you, or yeah, have a look at this video and it will talk you through the process of a refund or whatever the discussion may be.
Not something we've always done very well, admittedly. But you mentioned AI and the fact that increasingly organizations are turning to AI as a customer service strategy. There are a lot of people saying, hang on a minute, how do I go about it?
Yeah, and honestly, there's not a simple answer here. And I've seen quite a few projects fail, but I've also seen some really successful projects. And if I focus on why I think the successful projects have happened, firstly, they have a vision as an organization. AI is not something you can just plonk a chatbot on your website and hope it's gonna learn your business. It's just doesn't work that way. Firstly, if you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out, essentially. And again, it comes back to the knowledge management piece. It will reference information within the organization, and it will learn from the information, or it will learn from its success rate, basically. So take those top 10 examples. Make sure that you have the right, whatever it is, knowledge-based articles or information to feed into those responses, and then set up the workflows. And so we offer an amazing AI platform actually called Freddy, which will do that for you. It's a drag and drop, set up the workflows, present the right information, and it will deliver, and it will learn what the customers are asking. From an agent perspective, which is equally important, we can also provide the right information to the right agent at the right time. And there's a kind of number of ways that you can do this. You can avoid having the question come through to you in the first place by providing the right information. We can provide the right information, of course. We can help collaborate, so we can help make sure that it goes to the right person. If there's a particular person that's skilled in deliveries, or skilled in refunds, or skilled in WhatsApp, or whatever it is, it can route to that right person at the right time. And then the final one is context, basically. So how can we get the context into the agent? I remember just making a call to Amazon. This was last year, actually, and I was blown away by the level of context that they were able to give to each of their agents. The customer contact center was in Malaysia, I believe, and my very first phone call, he knew exactly what the problem was with the Kindle. He solved it almost immediately. It wasn't an easy issue to solve, actually, but I was kind of staggered at how efficient they were. And it was all because he knew my story. He knew the problem almost before I made the call. It was brilliant. It was a really, really great experience. And if you compare that with, I'm sure you've had the same, Liz, where you call somebody and they just have no context. They don't know what the problem is, and they'll pass you on to somebody else in another. And I don't blame the agents, by the way, at all. I blame the technology and the organization for putting the agent in that situation. No context, and we pass to the next person. They also don't know, they have no context, and you get past, and that's when the real frustration kicks in for the consumer. And it's unnecessary. It doesn't need to be that way because the platforms are there. You know, an omnichannel platform has been around for a while now.
But I think we do have to wake up to the fact that the customer expects whatever the best experience is that they've had previously, even though it was with a different company, but they expect you to be able to deliver to that level. And of course, that's why customer expectation is going up. But all of this, and I was really surprised to discover that 75% were saying that their budgets had increased significantly. It all hinges on the largesse of the company chief financial officer. So, you know, where is the convincing argument that we can use that says to him or her, you know, we need to add live chat to the customer service strategy. We need the money.
Yeah, well, that's the age-old question, and I think first thing I do is email a copy of this report, of course, because I think that gives a lot of.
You would say that, wouldn't you?
It gives a lot of pointers as to what customer success leaders are thinking, and it's not just a one-off. You know, this is 1,500 globally. So I think that's the first port of call. I think the second thing is if we look at every company wants a sticky consumer. We want a consumer to stay with us because of whether it is the experience we offer or the product set we offer or the service that we offer. If that gap closes because everything's now e-commerce, how do you then differentiate? And that's the key thing. From a CFO's perspective, what they want to see are high profits and low costs, ultimately, longevity. But suddenly everybody is driven by e-commerce. So we have to figure out how do we differentiate from our competitor down the road or our competitor overseas. And for me, that all comes with service. Yeah, we have to find a way of keeping those customers through the service that we deliver. The product stays the same.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that there is more of a meeting of minds between the profitability side of an organization and the customer service ethos, values, principles-led, ethical behavior of an organization, and there is more of a meeting of minds, I think, coming about.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think we always talk about IT and customer service being cost centers. Everybody always says, oh, well, let's keep the costs down, that you know, it's an IT team that's servicing the company, or keep the costs down, it's customer service. Actually, let's look at these organizations as value adding. How can we stop doing the really the less tricky things? How do we automate all of the simple things and start adding value? Yeah. Some of that value, honestly, can be selling. You know, if you're dealing with a customer that's either got a problem or not got a problem, actually the whole time we should be trying to present them with the right solution. And that's a key. Customer service is not about just solving problems. It's about, you know, giving the right image, giving the right ambience of the organization. That some of that can be through selling, if you need it to be.
We're out of time. Just one very quick thing. One thing you said, which I really liked, we're living at work rather than working from home. But what does that actually mean for? We need a shift in mindset to think about how we're living, as opposed to necessarily just how we're working.
Yeah. Well, as you can see, I have a new puppy in the background here.
Yes.
But very much.
I've been waiting for him to come out.
Yeah. I mean, companies need to be very understanding, and Freshworks have been amazing actually around this. You know, they've given everybody a budget at home to invest and improve their Wi-Fi connections, improve their laptops and screens and, you know, webcams and everything else that's going on. And I think organizations need to be aware of that. If we want to deliver, and again, it comes back to the CFO really releasing that budget, but if we want our staff to deliver world-class performance, we have to back them up and support them with the right tooling to actually make that happen.
And we have to stop them working into the small hours because they feel that's what's expected, I think.
Which can also be very easily arranged through an omni-channel platform, because you turn the team on and you turn the team off. You can dial down or dial up the number of calls. You can set skill levels. That's table stakes, really.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. We are out of time. It's 12 o'clock. CCA has done its own research with Freshworks, and that's centered on the UK and Ireland. That will come out in the new year. Watch for more news of that. Until, well, I'm not sure that I'll see you again until the new year. And if that's the case, then do have a great holiday, and we'll see you in 2021. Simon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz.
For joining us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.